Hello and welcome. I'm Exolite and this is my channel. Today we're going to take a road trip in Texas where I live. We're going to go to Austin and we're going to visit 3 haunted sites that you can still go visit to this day. Before we get started, if you would give this video a thumbs up, I would appreciate that. If you are not subscribed, why not? Please go ahead and push that subscribe button. And if you would like to be notified when my content goes live, go ahead and click that bell. And here we go. Let's learn a little bit about Austin and some of the places that haunt it. The OHenry House. William Sidney Porter, whose pen name was OHenry, came to Austin in 1884, and in addition to working as a pharmacist, a musician, and a draftsman during his time there, he also worked at the state's General Land Office, which is a castle-like structure at the southeast corner of the Capitol grounds. To make extra money, Porter wrote stories for various Austin and regional newspapers. In 1902, he moved to New York, and the 381 stories he wrote while living in the Big Apple won him international fame. But during his stay in Austin, he lived in a modest-looking little cottage at 409 East 5th Street with his wife, Al Hall, and their daughter in the 1890s. In 1934, the OHenry House was turned into a museum. Dawsons say that it is still occupied by the ghost of a mother and a son who lived there in the early 1900s after Porter and his family moved out. The story goes that during one of Austin's flu epidemics, a little boy who was living in the house contracted the disease. For several days, his mother sat by the child's bedside in the front room. She sat holding his hand. When her son finally died, the mother refused to release his dead hand for 2 days. Finally, her family members wrenched the boy's corpse away from his mother. For weeks afterward, the grieving woman continued lying on the bed where her son had passed away. Dawsons at the OHenry House claimed that the mournful mother has never abandoned her lonely vigil by her son's bedside. Staff members have made up the bed before leaving for the day, only to find the impression of an adult's body on the mattress when they return the next morning. Because love, it seems, has the power to transcend even the bonds of death itself. Next, we're going to head over to the Susanna Dickinson house. Susanna Dickinson was born in rural Tennessee in 1815. She eloped when she was just 15 years old, and she married a soldier named Almiron Dickinson. 2 years later, Susanna and her husband emigrated to the Mexican province of Texas, Tejas, and settled near the town of Gonzales. In 1835, Almiron volunteered his services as an artilleryman in the Revolution. His wife joined him after Texas volunteers raided her home. After the Texas volunteers took San Antonio on December 3rd, Almiron was placed in command of artillery batteries at the Alamo. Susanna was quartered in the home of Ramon Musquiz, along with the families of other volunteers. When Santa Anna attacked the Alamo on February 23, 1836, Almiron jumped on his horse and rode to the home of Musquiz, where he picked up his wife and his infant daughter and took them inside the Alamo. On the day of the final assault on the Alamo, Susanna and the other women took refuge in an anteroom of the chapel. Almiron had just enough time to stick his head inside the door to tell his wife that he hoped that she and their baby would survive. He then returned to the battle that raged outside the chapel, and he was killed. After the siege had ended and all the defenders of the Alamo were dead, Santa Anna singled out Susanna and gave her a message to carry to General Sam Houston. The message informed him that everyone who resisted him and his army would meet the same fate as that of the soldiers at the Alamo. Susanna was illiterate, and she did not know what the letter she delivered to General Houston said. As she handed him the letter, she said, "Santa Anna killed my husband. Now go get him." She asked the Congress of the Republic of Texas for financial relief, but she was refused. After that, she entered into a series of marriages in order to make ends meet. After divorcing her second husband, who was an abusive drunk, she received a land bounty from the Republic and worked as a laundress and a boarding house keeper. Then she married a third time, but was soon widowed. Her fourth husband divorced Susanna after she had already left him. She ran a boarding house in Lockhart for a few years before marrying her fifth husband, a German immigrant named Joseph William Hanig, in 1857. She and Hanig moved to Austin, where he opened up a furniture store. In 1869, Hanig used Susanna's savings and her relief money from the Alamo to build a house on 5th Street, which is about 100 feet from where the house now stands. Susanna and Joseph became very wealthy as a result of this wise real estate investment, and they moved into a mansion on Duval Street. By the time Susanna died in 1883, she had achieved the fame as the messenger of the Alamo and the only Anglo-female survivor of the siege. Her larger-than-life persona made an indelible impression on the history of Austin, and apparently on the little house at 5th Street as well, where her ghostly presence can still be felt. A number of different people owned the home that Susanna Dickinson lived in the 20th century. In the 1990s, it was converted into a popular barbecue joint called The Pit. George W. Bush is reputed to have been one of the restaurant's best customers when he was governor. In early 2000, plans were made to build a Hilton hotel on the site of Susanna's home. The rumor soon spread that the old house was going to be dismantled and reopened in the lobby, where it would be transformed into a taco bar. The public outcry was so great that the house was moved to its present location, about 100 feet away from the hotel, and deeded to the city in 2003. 7 years later, it opened as a museum. According to local legend, Susanna Dickinson's forceful personality has not been totally suppressed by the passing of time. Many people claim to have seen the image of a large, heavy-set woman wearing a 19th century dress walking around the outside of the house. Some people have seen the curtains move when nobody was inside the house. It seems as though Susanna's ghost is not totally satisfied with the new location of her house. However, for years, Hilton employees say water has seeped into the hotel in the exact spot where her house once stood, even though geologists have been unable to find any underground springs beneath the hotel. Let's see, where are we going to go next? We're going to go to the University of Texas Tower, otherwise known as the UT Tower. In 1881, the state legislature passed an act establishing the University of Texas in Austin. An architect, Abner Cook, was hired to design the first building. In September of 1883, the university started holding classes in the temporary state capitol building, and on January 1st, 1884, students began attending classes in the new main building on College Hill. Before long, Old Main acquired a reputation for being haunted. Some say that spirits took over the building because the mud from which bricks were fired was taken from Shoal Creek, which locals have always claimed is cursed. Others say that the building became haunted after ivy, taken from the grave of English poet Thomas Gray, was planted outside of its walls. Old Main was razed in the early 1930s, and in 1937, a 307-foot, 27-floor tower was erected in its place. Today, this tower has a grim legacy. which some people blame on the fact that some of the old mains bricks were used in its construction. During its first 3 decades, 4 people lost their lives after plummeting from the tower. One was a construction worker who slipped and fell to his death. The other were 3 suicides who jumped off the tower in 1945, 1949, and 1961. Of course, the tower was also the site of one of the darkest episodes in Austin's history. On August 1st, 1966, a university student and former Marine named Charles Whitman climbed to the 28th floor observation deck of the tower and began shooting at people with a high-powered rifle. By the time the Austin police and the DPS officers had killed Whitman and ended his hour-and-a-half shooting spree, the troubled student had killed 16 people and wounded a whopping 32 others. Although no one knows why Whitman snapped, some people believe that the impending divorce of his parents may have been a factor. The tower was closed off right after the shootings and did not reopen until 2 years later. Almost immediately, students began committing suicide by jumping from the tower. A total of 9 students have jumped to their deaths since the tower's opening in 1937. So, the administration closed it once again. After the tower was opened again in 1989, students reported seeing the ghosts of suicide victims walking around the bottom of the tower. The ghost of the construction worker could also be seen walking around the infamous tower. In The Ghost of Austin, Fiona Broom reports that the tower is also haunted by the ghost of Charles Whitman. Witnesses have described his spirit as a man in workman's clothing and as a fleeting, shadowy figure. Security guards blame Whitman's ghost for turning on the lights while they are making their rounds. Today, the observation deck is open for tours. One wonders how many people climb the tower because of the beautiful view it offers of the campus, and how many do so because they are fascinated by the story of the troubled man who took so many innocent lives from this spot on August 1st, 1966. What do you think? Why do so many people still climb that tower? Thank you for coming on this road trip with me. Like I said, all 3 of these places can still be visited. Again, if you are not subscribed, please do so. I would greatly appreciate it. And if you would like to, please give this video a thumbs up. Good night.